Welcome to the Church Leadership Podcast, your weekly source for encouraging and equipping local church leaders, with your hosts, Mark Gainey and Andy Frazier. In each episode, Andy and Mark sit down with church leaders that you should know. We believe these honest conversations will be helpful and encouraging to you as you lead the local church. Here is this week's episode.
Welcome to episode 135 of the Church Leadership Podcast. We're so glad you're here for today's episode. We're excited about the conversation, and it's the first one of the new year, so happy new year. Before we get to the conversation, though, I want to remind you to go and subscribe to our podcast. We don't want you to miss a single episode. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube, just hit the subscribe button. Maybe you're listening on your favorite podcast listening app. Just take a moment to hit the subscribe button. If you're like me, you really only listen to podcasts you subscribe to. And so we want to make sure you don't miss a single episode, because we really do believe that every episode is an opportunity to be encouraged and equipped to lead in the local church. So we want you to do that. Now, here is our conversation.
Well, Mark, it is just the two of us, as the song goes.
Just the two of us.
It's 2022.
That doesn't sound right.
I mean,
it's not rolling off the tongue.
No.
Yet. 2022.
It's a new year. Maybe you are setting goals and making resolutions and planning on how far you're going to take those before you give up on them. I don't know.
Or maybe you've already given up on them.
Maybe you've already failed. I am always kind of approaching a new year differently than most people. I tend to look back as much as I do look forward. And I think that's maybe what we could do today, is maybe look back at 2021 and see maybe there were some good things.
That's right.
Maybe some not so good things.
Yeah, kind of
maybe
a best and worst.
Yeah, maybe.
Mostly best.
Maybe we could do that. Okay.
We're positive people, but we may talk about a worst here or there. But so it's going to be a fun conversation today. We're going to look back at 2021 and talk about some of the things that we enjoyed, some of the things that maybe we didn't, but some bests of the year.
Yeah.
And so we're just gonna pepper each other with questions.
Well, our goal is to encourage and equip leaders in the local church, and we just feel like this is an encouraging episode. Yeah. Maybe you can laugh with us, maybe you can get mad at us and send us some hate mail afterwards, because maybe you don't agree with some of the things.
That's right.
But you know what? It's a free country, Second Amendment and all that. We have the right to voice our opinions.
That's exactly right.
So.
And really, we hope that our reflections will cause you to reflect a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe some surprises, maybe some things that you hadn't thought about or you forgot about that, will bring some light to your day.
Well, along with having families and serving in ministry and the various things that we're involved in, including this podcast, which we love, by the way, we're so thankful for. We just wanted to share a little bit with you about things we enjoy personally, things that we have fun doing, things that we poke fun at each other for doing. Right. So this is just kind of a list of a few things that were the best of or the worst of from last year in 2021. So let's go ahead and just jump in, Mark.
Let's go. Let's go.
First on our list.
All right. First on my list is best movie of the year.
Okay. Well, how about this? What if I go with best series?
We can do that.
Something that I watched, and we are all about streaming at our house. We don't watch much regular broadcast television. So everything is when you have time. We don't have a set time where we sit down and watch things, but it's just when you have time to watch things.
That's us too.
And it's family friendly. Thankful for Disney Plus. I don't know if I violated any copyright laws by saying that, but The Mandalorian, man, we just love The Mandalorian. So little Grogu, little baby Yoda, whatever you want to call him. He was just a big hit at our house. So this is the way. I've spoken.
This is the way. Yeah, I love it. We love Mandalorian too, by the way, and we're looking forward. It just came out. The new
Book of Boba Fett.
Book of Boba Fett. Yeah. We haven't watched it yet, but so I'm going to answer both of them. I'm going to answer movie and show and series. Okay. And so my favorite movie was at the very end of the year. It was Spider-Man: No Way Home, and it's not even close. I mean, it's the best movie I've seen in the last 3 years, probably. So
haven't seen it yet. Now you've got my interest peaked. I've got to go see it.
Oh well, our family is kind of Marvel freaks.
Yeah.
And speaking of things we make fun of each other about, that's one of the things that I get grief over. But we love superheroes. We love Marvel, and so it's no surprise that my favorite TV show series is also Marvel related, and that's WandaVision. We had to go back and look and make sure that it was in 2021 when it came out, not 2020. And it was the beginning of 2021. It seems like 7 years ago, but it's probably the best TV show I've ever seen in my life.
I will admit, I'm not as big of a Marvel fan as you. I don't know. I mean, I still don't know where Optimus Prime fits in the timeline of all that, but I agree. WandaVision was great. And here's why. So many twists and turns. I mean, it was just so many things about it. Even if you didn't fully understand the Marvel universe and everything that's going on behind the scenes and before and after, it was very intriguing.
It was. And kind of insight into who we are.
Yeah.
The reason why I love that movie and that show was not just because it was Marvel, was because there were lots of surprises.
Yeah.
You know, that WandaVision, if you've seen it or if you haven't seen it, I'll just tell you, it's unlike any other TV show I've ever seen. But the way they did it, they started out with like old school TV shows, which I love too, you know, black and white, those kind of things, sitcoms that I grew up on. And so that was kind of cool, nostalgic. Yeah. And just the things that they did were
all the villains. Man.
Oh man,
the villains just
totally shocked you in different ways. Yeah. And the movie too, by the way, I won't give any spoilers out, but I'll just say this. There's so many surprises when I watched it for the first time. I never watched movies twice in theater. I watched this one twice in the theater.
Oh my!
So that shows you how much I like.
I've always loved Spider-Man, by the way.
Yeah,
so,
well,
huge fan of Spider-Man.
Love Spider-Man.
Yeah,
but did you know he's Jewish, Spider-Man? No, I'm just kidding. so
Lloyd May.
So our theater was literally cheering and yelling throughout the whole movie. I never experienced that.
Wow.
Kind of cool.
Okay.
All right.
Next on the list.
Favorite
book that you read.
Favorite book that I read.
Let me give a little bit of a background on how I choose favorite books. Okay. I love to read. That is something I've enjoyed doing for years and years, not just for research or for personal growth. I just like to read. I like to read. I think leaders should be readers, by the way. But I also have enough time where I can't sit down and read a book, and I'm in a vehicle traveling, driving a lot. So I listen to a lot of books. So there's books I read, there's books I listen to. If it's a really, really good book that I've read, I'll listen to it. If it's a really, really good book that I've listened to, I'll read it. But I will say this. First, I'll tell you, I have two choices. Okay. First, the one that I enjoyed that helped me a great deal this year was a book called Faith for Exiles. And it's a parallel between Old Testament, God's people living in Babylon. And man, it parallels so well with the cultural wind. We live in digital Babylon. That's all I'll say about that. But it's a fantastic, as a matter of fact, it helped me with a series of sermons that I preached last year. So that's one book. And another book I'll save until you give your answer.
All right. Well, there's a couple books I'm going to mention, probably like you. One is, it's actually a book I reread. I think I originally read it in 2020 and reread it again in 2021. And that's by our friend Joel Malm. And it's the book Full of You.
Yes.
And I read it and I took my time through it in 2021. And it was just so practical, so powerful. And it's a book really about things that we struggle with, finding your real identity and what really defines you. And so it was a fantastic book for me in the moment that I was living at the time.
Let me just say, reading that book will open your eyes to see that all of us have some things in common, and how God can use the gospel in our lives to allow us to see that Jesus has met all of our needs. That's what's one thing I love about that book. It goes back to the gospel. So second book that we're going to mention is one that I read, but it's one that you wrote.
Yeah, and that you contributed to, by the way.
Well, you're the writer. So there's a book called 4 Invitations.
That's right.
And tell us a little bit about that book.
It is my favorite book I've ever written. And so 4 Invitations, it's really the 4 disciple making invitations of Jesus, and really gives us a path forward to make disciples. And so if you're interested, I'll tell you, it's kind of shameless plug. If you're interested in a pathway to make disciples in your church, a process, Jesus gave it to us through the 4 invitations. And so I'd encourage you to check it out. It's available on Amazon.
It's a great book. Seriously, not just because Mark, the co-host of the Church Leadership Podcast, wrote the book, but just because it is a very practical resource and tool to help you make disciples in your local church. It's really, really helpful. Really, really good. So those are good books. What's next on the list? Best or worst?
Trip
Best trip
that you took in 2021. Best trip.
Okay. Worst trip was down the stairs one time when I fell. Best trip, it's a tie for me.
Okay.
Our family took a couple of trips to Orlando this past year, one in the spring and one during Thanksgiving. We went to Disney World and we went to Universal. Both of those are a tie. And here's why they're a tie. I love the atmosphere of Disney, but I like the rides at Universal. So both of those, but the greatest thing about those trips to me was just getting away with the family. So those are memories we made that we will cherish for a long time. So those are 2 trips that we took.
Well, mine's going to sound very similar. So we take a trip every time one of our children graduates. We say, okay, you get to pick where we go, and that's where we go. A few years ago, went to New York. This last year, our second oldest daughter graduated high school, and she wanted to go to Disney. She actually wanted to go to Disneyland, but during the summer we couldn't because it was closed.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to Disney World, and we've been before, but it was by far my favorite trip to Disney. For a lot of reasons. It was the last trip before my oldest daughter got married that we took together. And so that was cool. But also I feel like I just soaked it up more this year. And, obviously the rides a lot of them are geared toward kids, but we did the Rise of the Resistance, in Hollywood Studios, and Rock and Roller Coaster, my favorite all-time roller coaster. So
that used to be my favorite roller coaster.
So you went to Universal?
Until I rode the Velocicoaster at Universal.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean,
I've heard good things. Well, anyway, that was our best trip.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing you just mentioned. Now that our kids are a little bit older, you don't have to worry about taking them to a changing table or feeding them or they can kind of keep up with themselves, and it makes things so much better. So parents of young children, let me just tell you and encourage you, it gets better.
It does.
Hang in there. It does. All right. Sports question. Best or worst game of 2021?
Okay. Well, honestly, I don't have a best. I have no best. My sports year was garbage all year long. And so I would say the worst sports game was almost every Troy football game I went to this year. It was disaster. It was miserable.
How about best sports moment?
Best sports moment was when we exited our coach and we hired John Summerall. That is the best sports moment.
All right. That's a win in your book.
That's right.
There.
That's like winning a bowl game.
Well, for me, I've been a Atlanta Braves fan for long time. So for them to win the World Series this past year was just icing on the cake for me to be a Braves fan. So
yeah, that's a good one.
It was and for them to beat the cheating Astros.
That's right. I'm glad somebody did. So I'm a Mets fan. So I don't like the Braves, but I even celebrated with my friends who are Braves fans because it was a long time coming. It's been a while.
As a matter of fact, in the realm of what we're talking about in sports, the best sports sign I saw all year long was during one of the World Series games. One of the Braves fans held up a sign and it said, I had to make this sign because the Astros stole my other sign. So
that's so good.
Yeah,
that's so good. I like it.
All right,
that's good. All right, so the next best mobile app. Best iPad or whatever.
I thought you were going to say best nap. That would best app. Well, seeing as we disagree on platforms, Android and Apple,
Android.
Yeah, I'm an Apple person, so pretty much any native Apple app is very useful to me. I use all of them quite a bit. I use, and this is an exhaustive list. Sorry, I couldn't narrow it down to one. Okay. I use Notes quite a bit, and I have for years. Being a pastor for years, I used to keep index cards and a little folder that I kept them in for sermon research and for any book of the Bible, any theme or topic or whatever. I would just compile all these resources on these index cards, and I would be able to go back in this little file folder and find them when it came time to teach or preach on a subject. That's what Notes is for me now, and I have access to it wherever I go at any time. So it's really, really good. I have thousands of notes and I have them in folders and organized. So Audible, I mentioned earlier, I like to listen to books.
Yes.
So that's my number one book listening app. I use it quite a bit.
I would give ditto on Audible.
And then on my iPad, I would say Procreate. I like to, I've kind of begun to dabble in a little bit of graphic stuff. So that is not in my wheelhouse to by nature to do that, but I'm trying to develop a skill that I'm terrible at. So it was one of my goals this
Not
past
terrible.
year.
Actually getting much better. Getting really good. So I can name a few too. My favorite one probably is one called Breathe. And some of you may have Apple Watches that they do that for you, but I have a watch, but it doesn't do this for me. So I read a book, in fact, this year talking about different things. And one of the applications was, just take a breath, learn to breathe. And so I downloaded that app, and it coaches you how to breathe. And it's several different methods help you to breathe, to relax, help you to breathe, to sleep.
Let me simplify this for you.
Help you breathe, to focus.
Oxygen in, carbon dioxide.
That's right. That's right.
Okay?
That's important. That's right. But I don't do it right, apparently. But anyway, so that was a helpful one. A couple other ones. One is called Cram, and it's really like it's for students, and it's like study cards. But I use it for scripture memory, because I used to write all my scripture memory down, and I use that for scripture memory. Audible's one. There's one called Keep Notes that's kind of a task list for me that's been really helpful. So those are my best apps.
Yeah, we're very heavily involved in utilizing technology pretty much every day of our lives.
Yeah, no doubt.
And there are times where I'll take breaks from it and that kind of stuff. So but yeah, it's tough for me. It's probably tough for me to decide what app I like best over what meal I like best or movie or whatever, just because I use so many different apps on a regular basis.
Yep. All right.
Last one. Final question. All right, let's end on this one. What is the best decision that you made in 2021? What is the best decision?
That's a tough one. There are lots of decisions we both made, and some good ones and some bad ones. And I was thinking about this, and even before we hit record, I thought about it, and I'm thinking I probably should change my answer, because I'm thinking of a million different decisions that I'm so thankful that I made. But I think if I had to narrow it down to one, I would say just a few months ago, in fact, I made a decision to increase my investment in my prayer life. And it was kind of actually one of my resolutions for last year. And I didn't get around to really committing to it and putting it into practice until probably September or October. And it has been the best decision that I made all year long, because even days when I feel like I don't have time for this, the investment that I made has paid off and will continue to pay off, because the time I invest in prayer to the one who actually can change things reminds me that I'm spinning my wheels when I try to do it on my own. So
I tell you, we talked about several times the gifts COVID has given us, and one of the gifts COVID has given us, I believe, has been the emphasis to return to intentional, systematic, regular prayer. So I think by default, everybody who's a Christian has had to really invest more in their prayer life over the last couple of years. So that's good. Mine is a little bit more practical. We talked about technology earlier. One of the things that I struggled with up until a couple of years ago was letting my devices grab my attention or keep my attention when I should have been focused on something else, being present in a conversation, in a meeting, or, just focusing on something when I need to. So one of the things I did, I just told Mark earlier, it's been a week ago, it's been 1 year since I've done this. So I turned off all of the notifications on my apps, like all my social media and stuff like that, except for personal contacts like family or Mark or some people like that I know need to get in touch with me, can text me or call me, and I get notifications there. But like, I even turned off my notifications from my email. So systematically during the day, I have certain times where I will check social media, I will check my email or reply or respond, instead of feeling like I'm obligated. And it's almost like there was this fear of missing out. So if I wasn't able to see that notification and instantly, check out what's going on, if I posted something to go back and check to see if somebody commented or liked or whatever. So if you're on the other end of that, and you try to get in touch with me, or you commented on something, you wonder why maybe you haven't heard from me, that would be why.
That's probably why.
I'm not avoiding you. It's just I don't check my notifications very often. But that has been a wonderful thing. It's helped me to free up time, but also mentally the anxious, nervous concern about making sure you're staying on top of everything. It's just God's really used that to really help me.
That's awesome. And what a great reminder. I mean, we can't stay on top of everything. It's not our job. And, that we can step back and not worry about missing out. That's awesome. What a great decision.
Well, looking back, was a good year. Was the best of times, was the worst of times, as they say. But imagine what God has in store this year. I mean, imagine what things we're going to be able to look back at the end of 2022 and say, God taught me this. Here was the best of what happened. And obviously there's a lot of worsts. I mean, you can look back and we had some worse. I made some bad decisions. Yeah. I messed up quite a bit, but God's grace has brought us through all of that. And I look forward to enjoying God's grace this year through the good and the bad. So I'm always excited to see, after looking back, what God can do in the days ahead.
That's right. I'm pumped. I am pumped about this year, personally, ministry wise. This podcast, I'm excited about what God has in store.
7 more waves of the virus.
7 more different strands of the virus. That's right. Oh man. But today was really a time to reflect, and really I think it's important for us, maybe not for every podcast, but for us in this podcast, for you to know us. Because we feel a personal connection with our audience. And so if you're watching and listening, we do feel like we know you, and we want you to know us a little bit more too. And so that's really what today was about. But we're looking forward to what's ahead. Yeah. And we thank you again so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and it was lighthearted, but hopefully it did encourage you and equip you a little bit to lead in local church.
Yeah. And we would love to hear from you. What are some things that you learned this year in 2021?
Yeah.
You're welcome to respond to us. We'll leave a link in our on our churchleadershippodcast.com webpage, or the podcast listening platform that you choose to listen to. Let us know, what things did you learn? What things did you enjoy? Maybe some best things that we mentioned, or the worst things that we mentioned that maybe struck a chord with you.
That's right.
Share those things with us and pass along this podcast to other people. We would really appreciate that.
Yeah. And if you're driving, which, a lot of us listen to podcasts when we're driving, do not try to go to the show notes right now. Just when you get to a spot, just email us, contact@churchleadership. See if I can get this right. contact@churchleadershippodcast.com. And so that maybe that'll save you from having an accident as you try to look at the show notes while you're driving. But we'd love to hear from you. And we'd love to hear what God is doing in your life, and maybe how he's encouraged you through this podcast.
Thank you so much for listening and watching. And we pray you have a great 2022 leading in the local church.
Yep. We'll see you next time.